Okay, here we are back at Windy Woods. The last time we kind of touched on fear. Well, not touched on, we made the whole thing about fear. So we just want to clarify some things that we, because we had to talk about so much in the first video, so now we're just going to clear up a few bits and pieces.
Go and swim a bit deeper.
Swim a bit deeper, a little bit deeper, yeah.
It was super windy today. We didn't think we'd be coming out, and then it was a little bit too sunny, but the sun's just setting.
Which is strange because actually we've never experienced this kind of wind here. Ever. And it's literally the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We've had this kind of wind and it's just been crazy. Really crazy. Like breaking stuff and throwing stuff around. But there was a bit of a lull, so we came out to do this video.
Breaking the wind.
Breaking the wind, yeah. So basically people might say, okay, fear, what is it? At the most basic level, it's just energy. You know, if we break it down to the simplest form,
it really is just
that we
energy,
can just make a noise about and say energy, and then everyone knows what we're talking about. So and it just takes you over. It takes over your body, and it has. If you want to be like the, thank you.
Warm us up.
Yeah. The main effects that it has, this energy, is it has an effect on the body, obviously, and an effect on the mind.
Yeah.
So would I take the body and you take the mind, maybe?
Sure.
We'll
just vibe it.
I'll vibe it. So let's first of all talk about the body. So you feel fear, and instantly your stomach scrunches up, and you feel this kind of like pitch your stomach. Your chest closes up. It feels like you're being choked up here. And some people experience slight headache or tightness in the head, and obviously irritation, and blood is pumping, so you get flush and you get a bit crazy. So.
Well, what happens to your arms and legs when you enter the fight or flight mode?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, the biggest thing, I suppose, that's the most debilitating thing that stops us from becoming aware when fear takes hold is the fact that the fight or flight hormones kick in. And obviously this served us really well back in caveman days or whatever, but now that we're in this really kind of fairly safe environment.
90% of the first world is pretty...
Yeah, it's pretty safe. Yeah, I'm talking about the Western world, obviously. It's a little outmoded, and obviously the programming in our brains haven't actually evolved much from that time in terms of size and ability and so on. So our brain is hungry for... that programming wants to be fired up, and we tend to when we're in the grip of fear, we tend to get these fight or flight hormones that basically drain what we like to call you experience what's called a brain drain. So the brain just gets drained of a lot of the blood because you basically want to fight or flight, so it goes to your limbs. So the blood goes to your limbs and your heart and gets you ready for that situation. And so you actually are literally experiencing a lobotomy of sorts. You can't think. You're a bit kind of...
That's not great.
No. So
but the worst thing is you don't even know it. In fact, I think because of the focus that fear gives you and the presence, in a way, you get thrown into the...
Kind of a false presence.
It's a false presence, yeah.
Yeah.
A panicked presence that you suddenly get very here and now-y, which is obviously lovely, and that's what we're all trying to do, is live in the here and now. But then it kind of backfires because your brain hasn't got much going on, and so you're just using your more lizardy brain, your reptilian brain,
yeah,
and not your mammalian or human brain at all, and you're just going, run, fight. So you're either going to kind of pick a fight with the person nearest, even if they're not necessarily at the root of the fear itself, and or you're just going to want to get out of there. Like many times, if there's couples out there that have, or any relationships, when you might have disagreement with each other, that there's this instinct to just either
assault the other person violently with your voice,
just venom,
or physically in some situations,
unfortunately,
or you flight, which is
you just
like,
run away.
You run away.
You just want to run away and hide.
You go close up, and
that's a bit of a scuttling kind of mammal energy as well.
And in terms of communication, straight away the communication is broken down, because if you're doing flight, well, obviously fight, you're just going, meh, 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 I'm right. And the other person has to go, oh, okay, you're right, or you're not right, and then there's two people fighting, or one person runs away, and then the communication breaks down either way, and the communication is just lost because you're going, okay, I'd rather just stay quiet and let them have their way, which isn't good either, because there's actually no communication, and then the person feels resentful that they didn't get their say, and even if things go a certain way, they're still going to be a little resentful about what happens next. So
it's the worst thing when couples fight, because you're on a relationship and you're just like piercing holes in the boat. I'm just going to chop this boat that we've been working on for so long.
Yeah.
I'm just going to chop it to pieces.
Or break up
to punish you, but it's like you're in the boat too.
It's what actually, it serves you to kind of, grow in awareness in terms of the communication thing. And obviously, if it gets to a really bad way, then you saw the boat in half. You say, I'm going my way, you go your way, and that's like all this whole boat and building it up is now gone. So
it's so awful when we know so many couples that have broken up over the last year and a half, 2 years. I mean, the pressure cooker of being locked down together if you're not used to spending 24/7 like we are, which is a good and a bad thing. No, it's a good thing. But it was really hard on them. And then if you're not used to kind of having disagreements and then like seeing the person continuously every hour after, you can't just go away and have your own space. It's really trying, but it's so sad that some couples have gotten together for the wrong reasons and stay together for the wrong reasons, but I do believe that most people are compatible with most people. I think there was that lovely test with the bell jars. As long as the immune systems connect. I love that, where they had these different glass jars of kind of sweaty clothing from different people. Yeah. And then I just remember seeing these girls, so they were smelling and going, one of them would just be like, oh my god, this is a disgusting smell, and the other would be like, oh my god, it doesn't smell bad at all, this smells amazing.
That smells attractive. You're attracted to that smell. You're like,
that's so cute.
And that usually
nice.
It's a sign that your immune systems are compatible, so your offspring will be,
you make a tough baby,
will be stronger and a bigger chance of survival. So obviously you have to like the smell of your partner, even though they're a bit ripe. Obviously the female usually has to put up more in that line of
harsher scale of stinkiness. But anyway, moving on.
Yes, we're kind of, again, we're drifting. I
suppose we do that. We do wander around, wander down. So that is going to happen.
Yes. But just one thing that did come into my mind is that's kind of the appeal of like horror films, because apparently for about 1/24th of a second, when you get a big fright, because your survival mechanism kicks in, you have to have absolute focus, you get absolute presence for 1/24th of a second, and it's that hit which is
completely
exhilarating.
Completely
like
aware in the
proper
moment.
Awareness.
You feel and you see all of life, and you are here and now.
Bing.
You're not thinking away from it.
Yeah, so that's the appeal of horror films. Just a bit of trivia.
Which is what we're all trying to get to, a place of presence.
Yeah.
So obviously you get a little taste of that when you're in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Even if it's...
But it's not very pleasant for you overall, and it's not very pleasant for the person, anyone in the vicinity either.
No, of course not. It's not really. It's all pseudo pleasure.
So just getting back to the body and the
trunk of it.
Yeah. The blood just goes to your body, so you are lobotomized for all intents and purposes, because you're
not running properly.
Yeah, and that's, you see that people, when they are afraid, especially if they're spending long times of being afraid, they just can't think rationally. They can't think out their way out of a situation, or they can't make good choices. And that's been like a method of control in previous times, and that's a problem for our planet, because if we are afraid and we don't know how to deal with fear, then it's not going to go very well.
The problem is when you're kind of, there's a lot of it. It's very interesting studying kind of how humans act when they're by themselves or when they're in a group. I think it's fascinating why we would act differently, but there is that group mentality of when you're scared, you're not sure what to do. You do go into this herd mentality. When you see, horrible tragedies like, or people thinking there's gunmen in a super mall type thing, everyone just I don't know, there's just this weird thing that looks like a river of people just running in the same. People aren't kind of going in all directions, they're really going together. And it's that kind of safety of the herd. But the problem is then when we're lobotomized, we're just kind of following the leader, which might not even be anyone particular, or might be someone, as you said, usurping the situation, corralling people to get to a certain, like the lemmings off the cliff. Then it's really not a very helpful, thing at all. And I don't know. It's fear is such an odd thing, and we don't really realise the effect, the full hold that it has upon us. I think we're just so used to thinking, well, fear is a phobia, a silly phobia, an irrational phobia. No, fear is something that is happening to the majority of us pretty much daily, and there's different levels of it, and it's really affecting everything, and it's so dangerous. And we're talking about fear.
I know. But it's always it's one thing as well about fear is that it's always future.
Yes.
Like even like there's two different kind of brackets of fear. So you have psychological fear and you have physical fear. So psychological fear is like worrying about something in the future, something's preoccupying you and you're worrying about that and you're stressing about that. So for all intents and purposes, you're actually living that reality. I remember there was like this famous monk I read about one time, and he said you become your thoughts, because you're not there thinking I am me thinking my thoughts. You're just literally living your thoughts. So you become that fear and you live out that nightmare. So you might as well be living it, because your body depends on your interpretation of reality to see what's going on and to send the appropriate hormones, whether it be fight or flight or anything else. And so it relies on you to interpret reality for it. So if you're living this nightmare in your head and like walking around in a haunted house, then for all intents and purposes you are walking around in a haunted house, and you are damaging your body with different chemicals which are unnecessary and so on, etc.
Which also debilitate you completely, and it's then even harder to fight fear or to gain consciousness, I suppose. In that moment we lose awareness, our kind of conscious awareness, in the state that we just, as they say, like we lose the head. We lose the head of ourselves, or
lost the run of ourselves.
That's it.
This run of ourselves.
That's it.
But it's always future. It's always future, and it's never actually like, if we were actually, started to get more aware of the present moment, you'd find there's a lot less to kind of worry about, and that's another leap, and there's a lot more to discuss building up to that. But it's always a future thing, and even physical fear, which is like a dog. You kind of explain this a bit better than me, but the dog.
Well, I'll leave that.
And you're afraid. Is it okay? All right. Okay, but physical fear is also in the future, because you're actually thinking about what will happen next, not actually what's happening in this exact moment, usually. So, and fear feigns friendship.
It does,
Triple
because
F.
it tries to be your best bud, as we spoke about in the last episode, about it's trying to be your consigliere, and it's trying to say, gosh, I'm helping you out here, kid. This is a good thing, and it's not. It's actually your foe. It never helps.
Yeah.
That is, in our opinion, these are all our opinions, that is a completely misguided thought and idea that fear is anything but your foe. I don't think it helps at all.
Yeah.
I think it's, as we've been discussing, it's very dangerous.
Yeah. You're either in the camp of faith or fear. And of faith, what I mean is faith in life, faith in just in life. I don't want to go into specific terms, because then people might think that it can be wrapped up in lots of different ways. But basically, life, reality, if you like. Do you have faith in it? And what was it? Was it Einstein that said?
Our humanity, our technology.
No, the friendly.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good one too. Yeah. Or
are we in a?
You have to ask. Everyone has to ask themselves
this basic question.
This basic question. Then you feel which camp you're in. Is that, do you fundamentally, and Einstein was such a kind of realist in a way. He was an artist and a bit of a dreamer, but he wasn't this religious guy. And he said, you have to ask yourself, ultimately, is this a friendly universe? Is this universe friendly to you? Do you feel it's friendly? If you do,
like, is life a bitch or a beach? like literally, is it friendly or not? And that's kind of the crux, isn't it?
I think that's where you base all your perspective, your perception of reality upon. That little fork in the road. So am I going to live life in this with the, I'm going to try to less pirate profanity in this episode, because we're very bad after too many years hanging around bands. Is it poop stained spectacles you've got, or rose tinted spectacles? And that's really the choice. And if you choose the former, you are going to
self-fulfilling, isn't it?
see, it is completely a self-fulfilling attitude. You're going to only be viewing, oh yeah, look at that there, and oh, that happened again, and oh, I see. You're kind of just seeing that all the time, kind of like when pregnant women say, I'm just seeing babies everywhere, or you know, everyone's pregnant right now. And it happens too if you're having rose tinted spectacles. There's so many studies that show that positive, optimistic people are going to have a better life than the more pessimistic people, simply in the fact that they are always going to not only look on the bright side of life, but they're going to, there's a little, but it doesn't,
is there a bug trying to get on the camera?
Don't worry, it doesn't matter.
It's okay.
Doesn't matter. If you've the rose tinted spectacles, you're just going to be more attracting good vibes and good energy.
And usually it's a learned thing. Like obviously you could,
of course,
you're taught from an early age, one or the other, or you know, you're lucky enough to have a kind of a person who was awake to these things and saw a different way of looking at things, and maybe that appealed to you or resonated with you at some level. Thank you.